Caesar and I here again, back again. We have a special guest. We're going to let it introduce yourself, but thank you guys once again for listening in to our small endeavor, our humble endeavor, our last 30s, our podcast. Our guest today, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little about yourself.
My name is Javier Segovia. I'm 36. I was born and raised in Dallas. I have two sons, 19 and 15-year-olds. You know, I started pretty early. I was 16. You know, when my oldest was born, so I kind of had to fast track almost a little bit. But other than that, I mean, I'm a plumber. You know, I'm a veteran as well. So just kind of a lot of different experiences, you know, in my life. You know what I mean? And but for the most part, I'm just a normal kind of dude. You know what I mean? Just always ready to help out whoever, you know. And that's kind of been, I guess, my demeanor always is being of help, right? You know, my mom, we left my dad whenever I was 9, so she raised me on her own, you know. And so being Hispanic and being raised, you know, early 90s, you know, because I'm a 80s baby, right? So, you know, that it came with some challenges, right? But a lot of sacrifice on her part that now that I'm older, I get, right? Because now I'm a dad too. So, but other than that, I mean, just pretty laid back.
You talk about your early life and how your mom had that impact on you. Would you say that had to do with how you were a father to your kids at such an early age, that impact that she had on your life and how you saw her as a parental figure had anything to do how you molded?
For sure, man. You know, my mom, she was kind of soft, you know, not gonna lie. Like I gave her room for her money is always what I say, because my dad was the more disciplined figure. My mom, she was more of a protector, you know. Gotcha. So through her love is how I've been able to love my sons and not necessarily kind of be a product of my environment, because my dad was an alcoholic and he was violent, and so I always knew that growing up I didn't want to be like him, you know what I mean? But so then who do I resemble rather than my mom, you know what I mean? So she's always been, you know, loving me unconditionally no matter what, you know, from hitting her with being at 16, becoming a father, telling her, Mom, you're finna be a grandma, and exactly how I told her, you know. So she started crying and she was like, oh, Miko, like, you know, what are you gonna do? You know, like, you're gonna have to work, and
more concerned, right? Like not upset. Sounds like she was more like, I don't think you know what you're getting into.
I mean, straight up, kids raising kids is what it came down to, almost, you know. And so I ended up dropping out of school. Like, I ended up dropping out, working full time, you know, and so going in construction and just kind of leaving school, like, now I understood the different sacrifices that my mom had to make herself. And then, you know, come 18, like, I tried to join the military, but my mom talked me out of it at the time. She was, you know, like, no, Miko, like, your son's only 2, like, how are you going to leave him? And then, you know, you're going to leave him without a dad just like you know, like, you don't want to do that, you know what I mean? And so it kind of held me back. But not until I was 20, with my second son on the way, did I really think to myself, like, man, this is it? Like, am I going to get married? And, like, I'm going to be a mechanic, because I was a mechanic at the time. I felt like my walls were kind of closing in, you know? And so I wanted to give my sons someone to look up to, you know, because I felt like, other than my mom, I didn't really have a father figure, you know. I did, but I didn't, you know. It wasn't full time, you know what I'm saying? And so all I knew was that I wanted to give them at least a chance to experience something else than what I experienced. For sure. And so that took a little sacrifice on my part, because at, you know, the recruiter, you know how that goes, right? Like, I had asked him what were the chances of me being deployed, being 11 Bravo, being the infantry. He was like, oh man, it'll be about a year, you know. And nah, dude, straight out of basic, bro.
Hold on. If you're listening in and you were in the military, Specifically, you were in the Army, you were 11 Bravo. They had to laugh at that one.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Now you're recruited, did you jerk?
I mean, he was what was he?
He wasn't 11 Bravo.
He was a driver. No, he wasn't.
Like 88 Mike.
Yeah, 88 Mike.
Like
He was an 88 Mike. So he just drove the truck. You know what I mean? And so, man. What's even funnier, the way they told me.
You may not ever see any.
Oh yeah, he was like, "Oh, it'll be a year," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." So that gave me some confidence. I'm like, "All right, so I'll go." It's cool. Maybe the chances are the war would end, right? But the way they told me was even funnier because here I am, fresh out of boot. They offer schooling, so I'm like, you know what? Well, I may not have the opportunity to go to school during like my high school, but maybe I'll try college, right? And see what that's like. So I go to talk to my sergeant. How do I start the whole GI Bill?
While in AIT?
No, after. It was after.
Okay,
after I had completed AIT and all that.
All right, you're at your first duty station.
Yes, first duty station.
Where was that?
No, it was here. So I did the guard.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, I did the guard. So it was out here, based in Greenville. I talked to my sergeant. And, I was like, hey, I'm thinking about going to school. How do I start my GI Bill? And he was like, school? You don't need no school where you're going.
What's your last name?
Yeah, straight up. He was like,
my list.
He was like, my list, you just got picked up for a deployment. You're going to start MOB in about 2 months. Yeah, and so everything, my plan just changed. I was like, I'm in the Guard, so I'll go to school, take advantage of the opportunities that I have now. But then, I went to Iraq. I did a tour out there back in 2009 to 2010. I was stationed in a Camp Stryker, which was near Baghdad. We got attached to a MP unit, and what we did was we were basically like prison guards for detainees that we had. Yeah. And so that was a whole different experience. You know what I mean? That, like, embrace the suck, right? Yeah. You hear that a lot in the military, and that was really tough, man, because we were trained to go out and go clear houses and stuff like that, but then we get attached to an MP unit. Now we're stuck. We're on orders. You know what I mean? And so it wasn't like what I anticipated to experience.
Sure.
And so, but through there, though, man, I mean, I'm thankful now because I think to myself, if I can get through all that, like all this other stuff here it's easier, right? Because now we're at home, you know what I mean? And so the issues, they have solutions. Over there is like, it's a different mindset. Like the problems at home, they're at home. They're not there. You're just focusing on the daily. Like, let me just survive today, not get blown up, and then you know what I mean. And so
it's hard because as I hear you speak, it makes me think of so many young men and women, right? But when I was in, it was mostly men who were serving. They didn't let women serve in some capacities. Mm-hmm. And I was also in a military police battalion and company. And so mostly men in those units. But I think about, like, when you're on a mission and you're really just trying to survive and stay above the level on your mental health and everything else, and deal with all those issues, and then you call back home and there's concerns at home or issues at home, man, it could really tear somebody up.
Mm-hmm.
You saw that, I'm sure.
Oh yeah,
right. We all saw how.
Yeah, I went through. There were some long nights where I'd stare at my rifle. You know what I mean? Because so prior to joining, I got married because my recruiter said also she was already pregnant, so we would get more money and more benefits. You know what I mean? And so the day I left, I got stationed in El Paso, and long story short, I got into some trouble. I was unfaithful to my ex-wife. She found out, and so the day that I left, we decided to split, right? And so, and then about 2 months into being into Iraq, there was a conversation that I had with my mom, and she had already moved on at that point. And I was just like, damn, like, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, they want that one bad.
Moved on in what regard? Oh, from me. Oh, yes.
Exactly. So that, there was that was tough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because being across the world. At that point, I was kind of freaking out. I was like, no, I don't want to lose her. You know what I mean? Like, that was my bad. I made a mistake. You know what I mean? And so, but that taught me also that those problems being over there, they had no solution, because in order to fix that problem, you have to be in person. You know what I'm saying? And so I eventually ended up letting it go, and then they stayed together for a while after that. But those are just those life experiences, right? Like challenges that that can either break you or kind of make you, in a sense, right? Because even then, like, I know it's 22 service members a day, they commit suicide. You know what I mean? And so that's a big topic that is not really spoken about in the military. You know what I mean? Because, like you said, it's predominantly male. We are taught to suck it up and keep moving. You know what I mean? But what happens to that? What happens when you can't suck it up anymore? That you've already taken so much, and you feel like that breaking point, right? It's like, you don't have really nobody to talk to, and if you reach out to your buddy, it's like, quit being, you know what I mean, and muscle up and keep moving. You know what I mean? But it's like something that I feel as men, we should be able to feel comfortable enough to open up, you know what I mean, and discuss these situations, because we're just not taught not to,
Yeah.
If you're listening and you've heard him say, Javier say a couple times, 11 Bravo. So the military, for those of you who don't know, provides your military occupational specialty. I think it stands for. Right. So your job, and your job is determined or identified rather by these two numbers and then a letter. Usually, maybe things have changed, but so 95 Bravo, I believe, was military police. 11 Bravo, infantry. And so, just it's important to know that when we also make reference to the men and women ratio, in some of those jobs, it's going to be very majority men. So infantry, I don't even know if they currently.
It was an all-male unit.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
so
us,
sense.
I mean, I know they have now allowed females to serve in combat duties, but it's very few, I imagine.
Yeah. So back when I was in the early 90s, it was you could not serve in that capacity, if I remember correctly.
Right.
So you could do combat support, right? So medical services and supply chain and all those other things, and so. But you wouldn't be able to serve directly back in the day, and things have changed, of course. But but so that's, again, just to explain that reference there. If they're listening in and they're like, what are these numbers and letters and military jargon? So you served in what unit were you with?
I was with Delta one of the 141st. We were based out of Fort Worth. We ended up getting, like I said, attached to the MP unit. We did our mobilization in El Paso, and we were there for about a year and a half, or take. Wow. And then that was apart from going and being deployed for another year. So like the time that I was gone, it was almost like a sum of like 3 years. 3 years, because even after, I thought I was gonna continue my military career, so I ended up signing up for Warriors course, Warriors Leaders course, to get my E5, right? And so that extended my lead a little bit more, because being in the National Guard or reservist, a lot of those roles they're more prioritized to active than it is for the reservist and the Guard, because it's more of a waiting list. And so being that I was offered that at that time, I was like, man, you know what, let me go ahead and do it.
One barrier was at school, right?
The training.
So to go from specialist E4 to sergeant. So E5 is a sergeant. So that's a pretty significant jump, and particularly in leadership probably a little bit of pay, but it's not that big of a
Not
jump,
that
right?
big,
It's
not for
it's
the
like,
headache that
you
comes
would
with
think
it.
like, oh, I went from being just a junior leader to like the guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Right, exactly.
$100, $100
Yeah,
I don't know what it is.
probably like $200 more.
It's not much,
I mean?
man.
Yeah.
What do you think, right? Like
With like 100 more responsibilities. True. Yeah, because now you got people under you. Now you're gonna be a team leader, you know. And so, but even then, man, like now, I embrace a lot of the military experience. I use it now more. You know, before it was like a kind of like a love and hate type deal, like because there's a lot of stuff that it's a pain in the butt, but but at the time, you know, the more you fight it, the worse you're off. So that's when you embrace the suck, right?
That's right.
You embrace it, and then now it pays off. Right? Now it's like a lot of the discipline that I needed, because as a kid, I mean, like I said, I was getting in trouble left or right. I mean, I had been to Dallas, Mesquite, Plano, Garland jails growing up. You know, first time I got arrested was 14 for street racing. You know, so whenever I say I gave my mom the run for her money, I mean, I'm not lying. You know, a lot of troublesome.
So if you're law enforcement, he looks familiar. That's what it is. Like, if you're a DFW, I've seen him on all of East Dallas. You know what I mean?
That's too funny. Traffic cameras.
Yeah. I mean, you know, we go through our phases in life, man, and you just hope that there's someone there to educate you, to stop you, to check you. You know, like, hey, what are you doing, dude? Like, why are you doing all this? And law enforcement fits that role. It's a little bit more serious when they have to get involved. But hopefully you have, you know, mentors in your life. What kind of mentors did you have? Like you said, and all, you know, another point I was gonna make is like, you were talking about your dad. You were like, you know, how difficult it is to talk about it, because we're not trying to be critical and disrespect our parents when we talk about this, but it was tough sometimes, right? And they a lot of these guys they didn't know how to do things, you know, pre-internet or whatever the situation was, or just culturally. Some people don't know how to respond, and so I think that's what the reference is for a lot of individuals, is that when people say it was tough, and no disrespect to my mom or my dad or my aunts and uncles, it's that understanding that they didn't mean to kind of do us a certain way, but if they were working, for example, and they weren't home, well, for the young mind, they just weren't home. They don't know. I mean, I don't know that my dad was working hard in this crazy hot Texas sun to provide for us. I just knew, like, yo, my dad ain't never home. You know, and that's difficulty, particularly young bulls, man. You know, young bulls need that male, the big bull to get involved. Like, nah, dude, and the head nod, like, nah, you don't do that. You know, whatever it is. And so, what kind of mentors do you have in your life? Or,
you know, really growing up, I just like I said, father figures, not a whole lot. I mean, man, I learned through a lot of the things through experience. For sure. You know, what I did learn from the hard ways, man. That's what I grew up with. Because that's a lot of experience, man. Straight up, because it's like I knew better, but I chose not to do better. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of had that mentality, just like impulsive, right? And then that's where the military kind of helped me gain that discipline that I needed, right? And then that's why I knew that at that point in time in my life I needed that discipline. Because I had trouble with drinking, you know what I mean, and just kind of acting out, and you know, our emotions are in a higher state when we're drinking, you know. So if you're like sad, you're like super, like you're crying, you know, and you're mad, you're tearing stuff up, you know. And then for me, it was more, I was so angry at the world, right? And really angry just because of the certain things that I lived through, right? Not having my dad, and then not really understanding the complexity of that situation, which my mom saved our lives. Like, we literally ran away from my dad, because at the point where it got really bad, he had bought, you know, guns and pistols, and basically he told my mom, like, you're allowed to go to work and you come back home. And then for me, I was, you know, from school to home, homework, you know, I can't go out. I can't socialize. And so, man, that really emotionally, that really kind of messed me up internally. And so once we left, I mean, my mom, we had moved to a small city called Plainview up in by Lubbock, Texas.
Yeah.
Small town. At 10 years old, I was out there, smoking my first cigarette, getting high off of Freon, with I was in 5th grade and I was hanging around with middle schoolers, and then trying to fit in and not knowing myself. So I'm just kind of just going through the motions of what the world is giving me, So when I say I've a lot of the experience, like I know now, when I became a dad, I was like, well, I have to do better. You know what I mean? Because I have to give them a chance. I know that how I grew up without my dad being present, then I know that I have to be here. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of why I cut my military career short too, because I had already missed so much time. Like I left, my youngest son, he was like maybe 6 months old. My oldest, he was like 2.5. So. So that for me, I was just like, no, I got to come down home. I got to be there. You know what I mean? Like God forbid something happened to me, and then now they're stuck. Yeah. So I'm very, very thankful for that.
Yeah, for sure. Some of the better memories for the military, man.
For the military,
anything stands out. Because it's tough. Like you said, it's a love and hate.
It's a love and hate
relationship, man.
Man, the camaraderie, right? Like the brothers, man. That's probably the best thing that came out of it, because I still have buddies that I'll keep in contact with, and just sharing those memories with them, like in those sucky moments. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, man, that sucked, dude, but man, that was really funny when you landed on your face. You know what I'm saying? Like, the better memories, I guess, would be. Really just all that experience, right? Like, because, at first we went to just being able to fly to different places, right? Because, we flew into Germany. Yeah. From Germany, it was Kuwait, and we were there for like almost a month, so that sucked, but at the same time it was cool. Now it was cool, right? From then on, flying into Iraq, almost being blown up, we almost didn't make it, bro. Like we were literally flying over, and they were just throwing up mortar rounds up in the sky, and I mean,
doesn't that go against Geneva Conventions?
Oh yeah,
and you're supposed to be shooting at someone at an airplane.
Yeah, bro. Yeah. It was nuts, man.
By the way, nobody cares about the rules.
No.
Your enemy doesn't care.
Yeah, nobody cares.
The Europeans and the Americans care, right?
Right,
we're gonna fight ethically.
Yeah, sure.
But your enemy doesn't care about
Of course we do.
Yeah,
right. No, for sure.
What are some of the
tougher moments? Man, just being out there patrolling a prison, like in 120-degree weather. You know what I'm saying? Wearing all the full battle rattle. Going like almost like Groundhog Day. Because it was 6 days on and 1 day off. And so it was 12-hour days too. Like my shift started from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Which the good thing for me was like during that time I was able to call home sometimes. Like I'll get a little break, and then I was at that point, like at nighttime there was daytime here, so I was able to talk to my mom, and that worked out for me. But that really sucked. Just the whole like dullness, right? Because it's like wake up, go to the gym, eat, like as in a sense, go to work, get out, eat, do it again, do it the next day.
Same 12 meals, man.
Thing,
just like it wears on you, man.
Mm-hmm.
That for a lot of people, the stress of being there, and then the monotony as well, the dullness, and then really, honestly, the same few meals, man. They can't provide you a whole lot of options.
Right.
We're not going out to restaurants, man. It's whatever Uncle Sam wants to provide.
They did have a good Chinese restaurant out there. I mean, it was inside the base, you know what I mean? But it was probably the best chicken fried rice I've ever had.
Right?
That was like good moments,
That's cool.
Yeah. So
morale, man, to boost the morale, right?
Yeah.
What other kind of morale boosters did they have on base? Like,
On base, I mean, well, they had, you got your gym, you got the USO there, you know what I mean? So they give you like computers, gaming systems.
Yeah.
We were living in Saddam Hussein's kind of his base that we took over. So, he had an Olympic pool that we were able to use and go in there and some sightseeing inside. Sometimes you were able to go into the green zone, which is like Baghdad, right? To be able to go and kind of not do so much, but concerts. I got to see Five Finger Death Punch. That's a rock band. That's the first concert I had ever been to, and then it was overseas. That was pretty cool.
Where did they perform?
It was next to the PX. Like the PX is called. It's a store, exchange store where we could buy stuff.
That's the Army's Walmart.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, tax free.
Tax free.
So those were pretty. Those are cool moments.
Yeah.
Other than that, I mean, it seems like in the blink of an eye, it was like done. Since like we did it 4 years, and it was after that, it was like all the other, coming back home, readjusting. That's where I really started drinking a lot too. Is when I came back. Just coming back to basically my life being opposite of what it was. Went in, I was married, I'm coming back out, I'm getting divorced. I raised my son. I actually had primary custody of my youngest son, and so I raised him till he was 7. So that was a good thing for me because I went through those motions of waking up every morning, you know what I mean, bathing, school, got to experience all that. So all the time that I felt that I missed, I actually gained back with my sons. And so now that they're older, I miss them because now they're teenagers. They don't want to hang out with dad anymore. You know what I mean? So, but I get to appreciate it more that I was able to enjoy these moments with them. So
no, I can appreciate that.
I bet that also helped kind of getting readjusted here. I'm guessing having that routine that you have to go through every day there, coming home, and now you have a different routine, but it's still the same. You have to get up at a certain time. You have to do the same things every day. But now you're getting to enjoy it with your kids, and I think that also might have helped readjusting back to after being out there for 4 years.
Oh yeah, a lot. It makes you gives you that like you appreciate it more. You know what I'm saying? Like because being gone for so long, and then now to coming back, right? And going through that, and then so it helped me, readjust a lot more but even with the relationships that I have with my sons is a little bit different because since my oldest, I raised my youngest. With my oldest, there was I believe there's a little jealousy there sometimes, or there was growing up because he felt like, well, why is my little brother always staying with my dad but not me? You know what I'm saying? And so, but even then, it's like I told both of them, it's like, look, son, like the situation was different. You may not understand now. But at the time, like I had to step up, like I had to be the dad, and so I took advantage of that, regardless.
And it does change, man. Throughout, I talked to my older kids as well, right? And when my son was a little one, and when I just got out of the Army, we ended up living in the projects again, man. Something I said I would never do. I don't want to. Just a pride point, and just having left the projects, man. I come back to Texas, and there I am again. And now I got my son there, and I'm repeating what had been done for me and provided for me. And I was just like, we got to get out of here, man. Whatever it takes, going to school, whatever. And then I look at my youngest ones who are, under the age of, they're younger. And with their life now compared to my oldest son's life, night and day, man.
Oh, right.
And, like he had to struggle a little bit. And he's solid, man, but he could look back and be like, man, they have their own room. We live in a project. We had to share an air conditioning in one room. The project where we lived didn't have air conditioning, and there were these little 2-story thing. There was a kitchen downstairs and then a bedroom upstairs, just kind of little stairwell, if I remember correctly. But I remember there was no air conditioning. It was on you to get your own little window unit, and all we could afford is the little one. You know, like, hey, keep the door closed, put a wet towel at the bottom of the door, all of that, bro. But I can see how it's difficult, and for parents, like we always struggle with that ability to provide equality and equity in our kids. But
Right.
you can't compare a 25-year-old you to a 35 and 45 year old.
Exactly.
We're just different parts of it.
Exactly.
We've just evolved differently.
Exactly.
You know, so as we say often, right? The concept of our podcast is to learn a little bit about you. And I think we have a good sense of you know how you grew up and your military experience and fatherhood and that importance. And so we wanted to propose to you the concept of our podcast, and that's envision that you've been told you only have 30 days to live. And so let's say that's true for the period of the next 30 minutes. So our last 30 together here and our last 30 the concept of this podcast. How would you respond to that news? Who do you call? Who do you text? And what does that look like? Or call or email or whatever? What does that look like to you?
Man, it would really be more. I guess try to be there more, right? Try to really take advantage of that time and just be of service, right? Because for me, I've asked myself this question before. So similar, right? Like I asked myself, like, how do I want to be remembered if someday would come and I pass away? Like, how do I want to be remembered, right? And for me is always the thought of like always just being there. You know, like, oh man, I got friends that can tell that they can say about me, man. You know, I'll hit them up at 2 a.m. when they were out, whatever, but they have a flat tire. The first person in their mind would be me, and that's just me. Like I want to be there, and so I would probably just be more intentional with my time, I guess, right? More direction, like. But that's a tough one, because I guess really just be there for whoever needs me, right? Like say, hey man, like I only got 30 days, so take advantage. Like, what do you want from me? You know what I'm saying? Like, what do you need from me?
You want me to move your couch, or what do you need, man?
What do you need? You teach you how to cook? I mean, I don't know, but
we'll learn together.
Learn together. We'll take some culinary classes. You know what I mean? And then just really more, just more intentional with that time.
Yeah.
Because I think that's one of the things that it's difficult to even picture it, but that's the one thing that we all have that we know is going to be for sure. At one point, we are all going to leave this earth. We're going to leave whatever people believe that happens after that. But we're gonna be gone at one point. So it's a little harder to picture it, to start analyzing and be like, whoa, what if it happened in 30 days? But looking at that and knowing how you would react and things like that, is there any last things that you would like to do, like go somewhere? I know you said you visited a few places when you were in the military and things like that, but anywhere that you would like to visit or things to have experiences that maybe you haven't done yet?
Argentina. Well, South America, they have this this road that cuts through or goes through the Andes Mountains, and it stops by like Argentina, Chile, a bunch of other different countries, and you can literally almost like backpack this whole journey all the way. And I'd like to do that. Like, if it would take me the last 30 days, I'd do it. You know what I mean? Like, I'd start and come back. But no. But to answer your question, like, who would I tell? I don't know. I don't know if I want to tell anybody. Would you want to tell somebody?
We kind of go back and forth. We think we wouldn't. We think we would.
I think we tell each other.
You tell each other.
Like,
bro, like, remember that podcast we did a few years ago? Like, so it turns out, the irony, I think that we would try to be subtle about it. I have, my dad right now is going through some stuff, and he's, I think he's trying to tell us something, my sisters and I. He's trying to, like, say something, but he doesn't know how to communicate
Mhm.
like that, man. He I think, but he said a couple things, and so I think, I'm a product of my dad. I think I would be the same person. I'd just be like,
With
hey,
hints
man,
here and there.
yeah. So are you sure you don't want to go out today? Because in a month, that's probably not going to work for me, kind of thing, right? So I think I would just try to do that, and I really think, I know me, I'd write a bunch of letters and hide them, man,
No.
and then, so they could read afterwards. Because for what it's worth, man, it's hard for me to express myself too. It's hard for me to tell people I love them, man.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of that. It is what it is, and anyways, so I think I'm better at writing. So I would just write a bunch of letters and just kind of mail them to some homeboy and be like, yeah, I'd smell them. You like, hey, dude, every year mail these out, right? But you better come through, bro. Like, hey, dude, has anyone seen that box?
Yeah. I had it right here. What the bill? Jeez, I moved it. It stayed in the.
You would have to have like a filing cabinet. It's like all the dates, like so many people, so many different situations.
You mentioned right before we hit start, you said you started to say something. You said, I'm going to save it for the podcast. You said that you got close to or experienced death in a way that others have not. So in fact, this scenario was very true for you.
Yeah,
Can you talk about that?
So about 3 years ago, so I have to kind of backtrack. So December 26th of 2020, I got in a drunk driving accident where I thought I had hit like a metal pole, right? But then a week later, I get a call from Garland Police Department asking me if I was involved in an accident, which my first reaction was to lie, right? I was going to let you know. But then I really thought, I was like, man, I don't want to make things worse, So then I went ahead and I was like, yeah, I was. And so apparently I had hit somebody, had no recollection, right? And so he was like, look, man, no big deal. I just want to give you a ticket. Let's not make this harder than what it needs to be. Just meet me and I will give you a ticket and then be on with it, right? And I'm just like, man, like in my mind, I'm like, hey, and then so I was just like, I'm freaking out internally because I'm thinking, what if this is a lie? I wonder if they can still get me for DUI, you know what I mean? Do they have pictures, whatever? But apparently I was conscious enough to the people that I hit, give them my phone number, and they took a picture of my ID or my driver's license, right? And so then I just ended up taking off. So he gave me a ticket for leaving the scene of an accident. Yeah. And by the grace of God, that was it. Like it was just more of a slap on the wrist. Yeah.
He said, I gave my ID to the mailbox, and now the mailbox is over your trip. Turns out it wasn't a mailbox.
For me, that was a big defining moment because I asked myself, I was like, man, thankfully the people were okay. Yeah. It was actually their fault. They ran the red light. But even then, I was blacked out. You know what I mean? And so what really changed my perspective on that was this whole time, like I'm thinking nothing happened and I could have potentially killed somebody. You know what I'm saying? For me, that's my reaction. Yeah. I was like, I don't care what would have happened to me. But but to live with that, I don't want to live with that, and then at that point in time, it was more of a cry for help because I was so low, like in my drinking and because I was associated with cocaine, and so that's what I was actually on my way to go get, you know what I mean? And so, with those two hard addictions, like it drove me to that point, and then not until maybe about 7-8 months later did I commit suicide after I had actually I had relapsed, and it really ate me up, and so because at that point in time, whenever that week happened, I had like spoken to God, and I was like, Lord, like I need you to help me, and I felt that I was kind of getting better, but then I had that relapse and it really made me feel crappy.
No.
You know, because I had almost like promised myself that it wasn't going to be anymore. And so at that point in time, I was actually living in a hotel. My kids weren't really coming around. I was by myself a lot. Um, I wasn't drinking, but I did have that one relapse, and so and actually I ended up having an accident at work where I hit the top of my head and I split my head open, and so I felt like I suffered like a concussion from there, right? Because I wasn't right like for like a few weeks, you know, until that night. I don't know. I mean, I felt that I was never going to be able to change, and so I just took a bunch of pills, closed my eyes, you know, and from what I felt was a few minutes was hours because I did it like at 1 a.m. and then I went into this like dark void where I was conscious, I could see, but there was nothing to see. I felt at peace, you know. I didn't really know nothing. I was just kind of there. Like I just felt like my body, my soul, you know, just in limbo almost, right? And next thing I know, I just feel these two fingers, and I hear the words "awaken and rise," right? And I open my eyes, and at that moment, I hear a knock on the door, and then they're here to evict me, and I didn't know what to do, and so I called Joel, right? Because I felt like I couldn't call family, friends. You know, they were gonna ask. I felt like they were gonna ask too many questions, and I just wasn't in the headspace for it because I ended up starting to throw up blood and like you know, I told Joel, I was like, hey man, like I need you to pick me up. I need you, you know, you're gonna have all my things. I need you to take me to the hospital. And at this point, me and Joel, we had just been neighbors. Like we had a little conversations. We were barely even talked, but I felt comfortable enough with him that I felt like he wasn't going to judge me and he was just going to help me out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so at that point in time, that's what I needed. I just needed somebody just to help me out because I was going through, you know, my own, you know, mental case. And when I came back, like I was more confused because I was like, okay, well, so I'm still here. There's obviously still a purpose for me to be here. So at that point, you know, I've always kind of had like a relationship with God, I feel like, right? And so all I knew was that the answers that I needed were going to be in the Bible. And so then I just sought out to read the Bible, and little by little, he started revealing to me that everything that I've experienced in my life, and even he allowed me to what I would say to allow me to commit suicide, to bring me to where I am now, to where I can speak about it, because I know there's a lot of people out, you know, mental health, man, that's a real thing, you know what I mean? I personally before thought it wasn't until I fell in this like pit of my own like self-pity, I guess, of all the different challenges that, you know, that I had gone through, but not realizing that that's almost 99% of the world. Everybody goes through something. This is some of us are easier, you know, we're better at kind of hiding it and not talking about it. And then, you know, because I had served, like I had my sergeant about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, he committed suicide, excuse me, through a self-inflicting wound, and you know there was no coming back from that. You know what I'm saying? And so, what was crazy is that I would have never thought it would be him, because he was always laughing, always like he was the funny sergeant, like, you know, real laid back, and you know, and so for me, that opened my eyes because I understand that now. I understand that we all go through certain things, and sometimes things are kind of eat at us. But I feel like everything that has happened, to a certain extent, needs to happen. It's just our perspective needs to change to it. You know, because what's life without challenges? You know what I'm saying? Like it's just a regular, dull like real talk, like Groundhog Day. You know, not meaningless. There is meaning to this life. Like there's a purpose for each and one of us here. It's just up to us to search it out, right? And it's for like these conversations, right, to open up minds and to let you know that no matter what you go through in your life, you have people around you that care about you enough to that if you just reach out and you're like, hey man, I'm really having a hard time. Like I need to talk to somebody. A lot of us men don't know how to do that, and so that's why the suicide rate is higher in men than it is in women.
Correct.
Because we don't know about it.
It's a higher attempt rate and higher completion rate. Because the methods that we use are, as you said, right. There's no coming back from that. If someone is experiencing mental health issues, what advice do you have for them?
Man, to realize that there's somebody that loves you enough to where if you're not here, if you decide to take that pain that you're feeling, you're just passing it over to them in a sense, right? Because then you're going to make them feel like, damn, like, how did I not know? How did I miss this? Like, and then now that person will be like, oh, if I can only turn back time, and then they're going to be stuck in the regret, right? And sometimes stuck enough to where it eats them up, and they're never the same. You know what I mean? Or it'll flip it, and then they'll become an advocate, right? And they'll be more involved with people. But I feel like you should feel comfortable enough. There's got to be somebody enough where somebody will listen. And if there isn't, there's phone numbers.
Correct. There's hotlines. And actually, to be responsible, we're going to share that hotline in our comment section today when we post that here in the next time. From talking to posting, it takes a couple weeks. But before we do that, we'll post that in the comments. So if anyone is having difficulty struggling with things, there are numbers you can call if you're a veteran. We encourage each other to call each other, man, because who gets it like your brother and sister? It's no different than, Caesar and I have gone through some stuff very similar. And so I expect that he's having a real tough day where he's having some thoughts that are not usual, that he's going to call me first, right? And vice versa. And we have that agreement. Several of my veteran buddies as well. It's like, I'm not going to talk you out of anything. I'm going to be there with you, man. So it's a non-judgment phone call or Zoom, whatever we're going to do. And the end result, of course, is to encourage them not to do that, to remind them that people love them, but it cannot be a judgment.
No,
what you're doing is wrong, and this it's not right, and the religious text says this about it. No, we're not. I don't do all that. What I say is like, I love you, man. Mm-hmm. You're my homeboy. I love you. Like, is that enough, right? Mm-hmm. You love me, yeah. And so we can dance that way. Right. But it is important to let someone know that you care. Yeah, and it's hard, man, because what I'm gathering from you is that you also recognize that that most people have very similar issues, man. There's times where we feel unloved and maybe disrespected and not cared about, and that's simply not the case. There is someone else who can do that. Mm-hmm. Someone else who can provide that level of attention and care. And so hopefully you have a circle of friends that you've surrounded yourself around that can provide that for you.
It's important. Friends are important, because even if you don't have family or whatever the case may be,
family comes with triggers. I know for a lot of people it's like, it's hard for me because but with friends and colleagues, you get it's a privilege. You got to choose them, right? And family, right. So it's like my wife told me, it's like, why do you like Caesar so much? Like, we just get along, man. We're very similar. Now, if you look at us, you're like, this guy and this little pocket monster, they're not similar.
That's me and Joe all day, every day, bro.
Right?
Yeah.
That's
me and Joe every day.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, man. No, I love that guy.
It's a beautiful thing. Let me ask you a question, man. Is there any song that that really hits home on that you'd want played at your funeral?
Oh snap! I don't know. That's a tricky one, man. The one that comes to mind is "Amigo Bronco." You know the Bronco song.
Yeah.
Yep.
Man, I forgot what it's called. Dang it. Anyway, it's about his horse. And his horse
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Kind of. But he's talking about he's a friend.
Love, right? Just
It's a
talking about
friend.
like
Yeah, it's
friendship.
friendship. You know, it's a friend that you'll see one day again.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. You know. And what about what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind? What's your
Legacy?
legacy?
Man, just love. You know what I mean? Just because I feel like I'm a very loving person. You said you have a hard time expressing yourself sometimes, and for me, it's not like that's what gives me the peace. Is that if I talk to you today, I'm gonna be like, bro, I love you, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like because I guess this might be a part two, but what kind of dominoed everything from what we talked about suicide was the passing of my older brother. You know, that was something that was very hard for me. And so I kind of almost try to follow him down to the grave. And so before he passed, there had been like 3 months since the last time I had talked to him or seen him. I had talked to him, and he'd always tell me like, hey, bro, come through, come kick it. And at that point, I was working so much that I just didn't have time.
Yeah.
Or I say that.
Yeah.
But we all make time if we really want to, you know. And so that kind of ate up at me for a long time. And so now I learned from that is that, now I'll tell you, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or I'll call you, or I'll be there, you know what I'm saying? And so I was able to flip that around and use it to my advantage now.
For sure.
Because that's what you do, right? It's like perspective. Like,
absolutely.
Is your glass half empty or half full? You know, you could always add more.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And so you could always, it's just the way you look at it, you know? Like
And that's true about everything we do in life.
everything in life. It's just the way you look at it.
Perspective.
It's perspective. That's all that is, you know? You change your perspective, your circumstances may not change, but your outlook will. You know what I'm saying? Like,
And it may be enough to change your what's going on in your
whatever
world, man.
situation, your circumstance, you know?
It may be. It may be. And at least in your mind,
Mm-hmm.
you're like, again, man, I have another half glass of water I get to drink, man, versus, man, I already drank half. Both are still true.
Yep.
But it's your perspective and how you move forward.
Right.
And on that one, I am pretty proud of how I live my life in that regard, man. We're pretty positive individuals. Like, if we weren't the alternative, it's not a place we want to live.
Right.
We don't want to live in regret in yesterday.
Yeah.
We're here today and tomorrow. Like on the real,
That's true.
we're not. I don't live in errors I made. I learn from them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, man, I'll never do that again.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever the situation is, whether it's money, emotions, time, all those investments, man. Some of it you can get back. You can get your money back. You could go work and grind it. You can't get your time back.
Right.
If someone wasted your time, if they wasted 5 minutes of your time, man, what are you doing? And what imagine if they wasted 5 days, 5 months, man. And some people are in jobs or relationships or whatever situation it is, and you feel like it's a waste. You gotta make that change, man. You gotta look at what your options are and explore other opportunities. I talk to family members like, hey, I'm thinking about transitioning from this job. Like, you don't quit. You explore other options. You interview. You get the job, and you secure that. Then you transition.
That's true.
It's the same thing. I think in a relationship, you transition, but you transition to a relationship with yourself, man. Because I see a lot of people jump from one relationship to another, and they don't learn, man.
Right.
You go to the same stuff.
Right.
And that's the difficulty.
I forgot what it's called, but I guess an analogy that I give people is like you're expecting change, but you're doing the same actions, right? It's
That's
just
right.
like you're like a hamster in a wheel running in place.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so that's what it is that we get stuck in these patterns, right? That it's like we all know better, but we don't choose to do better. You know what I mean? And it just starts with that one little change. No, a certain no or a certain yes that will flip it all around for you.
Yeah.
You know, because if not, you're going to be stuck. You're going to be there. Because then it's like, no, man, can't do that. You got to break out the norm.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what helps break that is being a parent.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the slap of the face. Like, dang.
Yeah. You thought you knew.
It's humbling.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, parents
For
humbling.
sure.
Man.
For sure.
I remember one time I was arguing with my aunt, and I said, man, when I'm a parent, I'll never let my son or daughter, whatever, I was saying something. I don't remember exactly what I said, but act that way or whatever.
Yeah.
And you should never say that. Listen,
Right.
You should never say that. You never, I probably was at 17, 18 years old. I didn't know. Right?
Yeah,
I was thinking like, whatever, the kid was acting silly.
Querías.
Yeah, and now, what's up? That's the beauty. That's the beauty of it all. Man.
Sacrifice, man. That's what a lot of, what I think children teach you a lot is sacrifice, because now it's like you're not, the decisions that you make, they affect them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like straight up. It's, and so it's like it's up to us as parents to break certain cycles, I feel, to give them a chance. You know what I mean? Because if we're still the same, acting the same way our parents did, and then we're turning out there, you know what I mean? It's like, no, man.
We're gonna change that
We gotta change the cycle. And for me, that was my main, like, coming back and my mindset from everything that I learned is like, okay, I gotta do this for my sons.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I gotta do this for my sons.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah,
for me, it's changing that I guess the cycle of like alcoholism, because that's how my brother passed away too, was from alcohol poisoning, and high blood pressure. He was only 40. You know what I'm saying? And so it was from one night to the next. That day that he passed, like that was supposed to be a celebration for one of my nieces, that it was a birthday party, and then we got the phone call that morning, and it was like,
yeah,
So then for me, it's like, that's what I tell my family, is like, look, guys, our brother passed away in this certain way. Yeah, it sucked, but we're supposed to learn from this. You know what I'm saying? We're supposed to maybe start, drinking a little less. You know what I'm saying? Maybe just a little bit less. And for me, because it's, you only get one body, you only get one chance, really, right? So
you talked about your children and the impact they had. I was talking to my sister today, and we both agreed that at certain points of our life, when we're younger, we want to make our parents proud.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, we want to make our children proud.
Right.
Yeah.
We flip it. It's a beautiful thing. Any last words, man, for us before we wrap this one up? Any some advice for a young 20, 30-year-old listening in today, having a difficult time?
One day at a time. Man, that's what I tell a lot of people. Just one day at a time, man. Because it's good to look forward to some things and have goals and work towards them, right? But sometimes you can overwhelm yourself. Just take it one day at a time, one step at a time. Because, we can't control the external forces, but we can control what we choose to do and how we choose to act and react. And it's just one day at a time, one moment at a time, because I feel like we live in moments. Because who's to say that I have 30 days? What if I have,
Yeah, we never know what might happen.
I might just drive off. Yeah. And, you know what I'm saying? Like, we don't know these things. So it's like one moment at a time, one day at a time, and then I feel like that's the more easiest way to get through life. Because if you try to jump too far ahead, you get anxious. And it's like, oh man, I'm ready for this, but it's like, no, man, you got to work. You forget to live. Mm-hmm. That's
true, man. You said we get one life, man. We got to figure this out. Reach out to a mentor, connect to someone who's kind of lived a similar life, and wouldn't mind sharing some ideas and thoughts on that. But reach out to us, man. Shoot us an email. We'd love to hear from you. We're going to be continuing this effort and talking to men we joke all the time, like maybe one day when our skill set is up and we get better at this and some comments, we'll interview a woman. But right now we're gonna talk to men because we actually do believe that there's not enough men sharing their narrative of how we deal with life, death, and everything in between.
Right.
It's an important conversation.
Absolutely. So thank you once again for being here, for being our guest. Thank you guys for listening. Please like and subscribe and share with your friends and comment. If you have someone that you want us to interview, we're open to that as well. Again, we do this on our downtime, on evenings and weekends. So we have primary jobs that we have to concentrate on, but after that, we are available to make that available, and we will even travel.
Yeah,
we'll travel to make an interview happen, and it's all out of pocket for us, man. It's us investing our money and our time, but we love it, man. We really enjoy it. I have dreams now about the podcast. I woke up this morning and I thought I was in a really nice sports car with Patrick Bet David, and we were talking, and he was like, "I really like your podcast," and I'm like, "What?" Again, it's a minute or two later. Yeah, a minute or two later, I woke up, and I was so disappointed, man. I was like, "Dude, this is a nice car, man," and I didn't realize how big you were. And he was like, he looked at me, kind of laughing and stuff, and we had a good conversation. Turns out it was just a dream, man. And that's okay, dude, because eventually that conversation is going to happen. And eventually we're going to work our way to interviewing Jelly Roll. We're going to get up to somehow having a conversation with Jelly Roll. I look up to that guy so much. But thank you guys so much. We'll see you next week. We post every Wednesday. And again, thank you for your support. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys. We'll see you next week.
Thank you. Thank you, brother. Be good.
Appreciate it, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.